Hi guys, Nick Ferrari likes to call people who both work and don't work lazy in some of his rants on LBC. So when conducting an interview with Jack Kellum on the topic of a UBI, the host seems to have done zero research. This follows news of an ambitious pilot scheme in England that will give a number of people £1,600 a month for 2 years to understand the effects a UBI would have on employment, mental health and people's habits. Here Jack explains the goals of the project, but Nick is worried that it will mean more taxes and less poverty. Have a listen.
What are the indicators you and your colleagues will be looking at the end of it, Jack? How will you gauge whether it's been a success?
So it'll be quite a wide range of factors. So on the one hand, we'll be interested in things like employment, to see and people's
Well, you
sense
can't
of
get
financial...
a job, can you?
Pardon?
I thought you're not allowed to take a job for those 2 years, are you?
No, of course you're. Yeah, you're allowed to work. So we're really interested in the effects that this will have on employment. So we've seen.
So you'll get your £1,600 and you can bank a salary as well.
Yeah.
I come back to the point. What research has Nick Ferrari done on this? Once again, he complains about people being lazy, and he hasn't even bothered to research. Okay, I'm going to interview a guy about a UBI. At least understand what the hell a UBI is.
Yeah, so we're really interested in effects on employment. So, for instance, we've seen in some of the pilots that have taken place in Finland, where there was experimentation of UBI, employment actually increased slightly for those who were in receipt of a payment. And similarly in Stockton in California, where we've had experimentation, people who've received basic income, they're in better, more stable work after it, as well as seeing more improvements in their physical and mental health. So that would be one of the factors. Like I said, physical and mental health, we want to see how that was affected by this and so on.
How would that be funded?
I mean, there's plenty of research already that puts forward different options for funding. So, for instance, a think tank, Compass, has already modelled one form of more modest basic income, which could actually be rolled out at net zero cost, but would still see poverty drastically shrink. Yeah, that's one of the effects we've seen in lots of these trials, is poverty is drastically shrunk.
Jack, of course poverty will shrink, because you're giving people 20 grand.
First of all, this is a pilot project, so it wouldn't be funded in the same way as a regular UBI. This has been set up by a charity. So a charity is doing an experiment. It's a project being funded by a charity to understand the effects a UBI would have. And Nick Ferrari's immediate response is, well, how would we fund a UBI?
A year.
In this pilot, that would be the sum that goes forward. There are lots of different models for basic income at different levels that have been put forward. But look, this is huge. I think the other side of that is poverty would shrink. We could eliminate poverty.
Well, of course it will, because but someone on the only way it would be funded would an increase in taxation, I would have thought. You're not.
Once again, I would have thought you didn't actually do any research. There are many different ways it can be funded. For example, it can be funded through a tax on transactions. Billions of pounds flow in and out of banks and financial institutions every day. You could put a tax on each transaction, and that could fund, in part, a UBI. But another way of funding a UBI that doesn't cost anything is the elimination of certain welfare systems, welfare programs. So you could take a lot of people off welfare programs like universal credit, get rid of universal credit overnight, and the money you would save could be invested in a UBI. So the problem with a lot of the welfare programs is that the bureaucracy involved costs a massive amount of money. So if you have a UBI, you would eliminate that. So you wouldn't actually have to raise any taxes if you're doing it that way. But if you want to increase taxes, it doesn't have to be a tax on ordinary people. It can be a tax on transactions. And as more and more services are going online and purchasing of products and other things are going online, well, a transaction tax could raise a significant amount of money.
We're going to be able to get charity to fund it for everybody. I appreciate for your project and good luck to you, and I hope all the necessary funding comes forward. But to roll this out across the country, of course you'll end poverty, because who is ever in work will be paying taxes the like of which no one's ever seen before.
It's like his concern is, well, we don't want to get rid of poverty because that might increase taxes on people. As we know, it's not necessary. The only solution, there isn't just one solution to this. There are a number of different solutions to raise the finance necessary. But as I said before, and I've mentioned this on the stream, when it comes to investing in people, it's a cost. When it's anything else, it's an investment. Isn't there a massive problem there? And we've seen it before when the Labour Party are talking about, okay, we're going to roll out this policy. The first question from journalists is, how are you going to pay for it? But when it comes to whatever the Tories are doing, we're going to stop the boats. How are you going to pay for that? No one ever asks these questions. But when it comes to investing in people, it's a cost.
Well, there are plenty of different models have already been put forward for this. Not all of them would be particularly extreme tax rates that you suggested there. There are lots of different models for funding this. That's not the focus report. That's not what we've been doing. But we think, what we want to do and what we really want to focus on is to see what happens at this local level amongst these people. There's been really exciting experimentation around the world, the US, Finland. It's really important the UK takes part in these experiments, takes part in these trials, so we can see what the effects might be here. So we make sure that we don't lose out on the forms of welfare system which might be better fit for those forms of crisis we're going to face.
Don't worry, Nick. This plan is not going to cost you a penny. Okay, it's been funded by a charity, and its goal is to find out the impact this type of UBI would have. This is not a proper UBI, because a proper UBI would be universal until the end of someone's life. So they would start off probably at the age of 18, and they would be awarded whatever amount of money that we're talking about, £500, £600, £800, £1,000, £1,600, whatever, for the rest of their life per month. It has to be funded, of course, but this is the scope or the goal of this plan, this project, is not about how you would fund it, but the impact it would have on people's lives. Would people change their way of working? Many people work. The majority of people do jobs they don't like because they need the money to pay the bills. Can you imagine taking that away? Where people would say, well, I'm actually going to do a job that I like. Can you imagine the impact that has on people's mental health? People will continue to work because maybe the UBI is not enough. But it creates a floor that you don't fall under. It eliminates a huge amount of poverty, potentially eliminating all poverty. Is that a problem? Why would that be a problem for people? This is the wonderful thing about a UBI. And there's so many opportunities, I think, that it would create. For example, somebody wants to start a small business. At the moment, if you want to start a small business, you probably have to quit your job, go to the bank, and then raise finance. With a UBI, you could take, the risk is reduced. You go and buy a chip van or whatever. If the business collapses, well, you still have your UBI, £1,000 or £1,600 a month. So it provides opportunities to create employment, but also the biggest point about it is it puts money into the local economy. Most people spend money in their local economy. That's what we should be doing. This will stimulate the economy. There are issues, concerns about inflation, but I don't think those have held water, those arguments, because if we have it linked to inflation, the UBI linked to inflation, we would resolve the problem of inflation. But also, we're putting money, it's not a significant amount of money into the economy, it's a significant amount of money to an individual. If you want to buy a coffee or something, if people have a bit more money, I don't see inflation eating or eliminating the benefits of a UBI. But these are all things we need to see. These are all consequences of a project like this that will come out. And if we do this, if we actually run these trials, then we can understand the impact it will have both economically and socially, which is important. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.